Hello friends, welcome back to the second part of the time value of money video. Now, in the previous video we saw how to find the future value when one invested just one-time lump sum amount. And in this video we will see how to find the future value of series of cash flows and the present value of series of cash flows. A series of regular cash flows is known as an annuity. By definition, annuities assume a regular cash flow over a specified period, which means that the amount does not change from one payment to the next. Now, let's see what are the types of annuities. This classification is simple because it is based on when the cash flow actually begins. The first type is the regular annuity. Here, the cash flows occur at the end of each period. This is also known as an annuity in arrears or an ordinary annuity. The second is annuity due. Here, the cash flow occurs at the beginning of each period. And the last type is deferred annuity. Here, the cash flows begin sometime beyond the first period. Now let's see how to find the future value of an annuity. So just to remind you, what's an annuity? It's a series of regular cash flow. Now, before we jump into the calculations, there are some important points to remember. Before you start a TVM calculation, determine whether the first periodic payment starts at the beginning or at the end of the first period. For example, if the first payment starts at the beginning of the year, then immediately set your calculator to the beginning mode, that is to the BGN mode. This BGN mode is used mainly for annuities due, where the cash flow starts immediately. And the next is the end mode. Is used for ordinary annuities and for most mortgages and loans. The end mode is the default mode for most calculators. And the last point, you have to determine whether the cash flows are inflows or outflows. So to determine that, take the perspective of a client, of an investor to be more precise. For example, let's assume that I'm investing an amount. Now that's an outflow. Why? Because the money flows out of my pocket. Therefore, it's a negative number. If I receive income from my investments, it's an inflow. Why? Again, because the money flows into my pocket. Therefore, it's a positive number. So, if they are cash outflows, mark them as negative number, and if they are cash inflows, mark them as positive numbers. Now, how to set the calculator to the BGN mode? Press second function and then BGN/end button. It will immediately activate the BGN mode. And you can also see the term BGN on top of the screen as an indicator that the beginning mode is activated. To deactivate it or to set it to the end mode, repeat the above step again. Now, let's see an example. Bilal plans to contribute $15,000 each year to his portfolio over the next 5 years, making the contributions at the end of each year. Bilal's portfolio, which was initially worth 0, generates a return of 8% per year. Now, what's the portfolio's value at the end of the 5th year? The main point to note here is that the contributions would be done at the end of each year. Therefore, you need not activate the beginning mode. This type of cash flow pattern is an example of a regular annuity. Now, let's begin our calculations. So, 5 is your N. 8 is your I/Y minus 15,000. Why? Because it's in cash outflow. It is your PMT, your periodic payment. Now compute the future value. Okay, so it is $87,999. Now with the same problem, let's consider the same above example but with a small variation. Here, Bilal would make the contributions at the beginning of each year, starting immediately. This type of cash flow pattern is an example of an annuity due. So the moment we find the terms contributions beginning each year or contributions starting immediately, then immediately set your calculator to the BGN mode by pressing second F and then the BGN key. Now go on with the usual calculation method. So now, since this is a problem of an annuity due, you have to set your calculator to first clear the operations. Yeah. So you have to set your calculation to the beginning mode, a second F function and BGN. So don't be concerned about what I do here because this is an online calculator. The real-time calculators are different. It's just very simple. Okay, so now we have 5. You can see here on the top that the BGN mode is activated. So press 5 and N. 8 is your rate of return minus 15,000 is your periodic payment, and now compute the future value. Yes, so the future value now is $95,038.94. Now let's see the third rule of the TVM concept, which is the future value of an annuity due will always be greater than the future value of a regular annuity. Why? Because in case of an annuity due, the payments are made at the beginning of every period, giving every single payment an extra period to earn compound interest, whereas in ordinary annuity, payments occur only at the end of the period. The formula for finding the future value of an annuity due is equal to the future value of an ordinary annuity times 1 plus R. R is the interest rate. Now, let's see another example. Sharon has a portfolio worth $100,000. She wants to know how much it will be worth at the end of 5 years if she contributes $15,000 annually starting today. So to answer Sharon's question, first set your calculator to the BGN mode, because a contribution start right away. They start immediately. So this is a case of an annuity due. So take the calculator, clear your memory, and since we already have the BGN mode activated, we can just go on. So 5 is your N. Your rate of interest is 8, $100,000 minus, okay, that is your present value. And she plans to contribute $15,000 at the beginning of each year. So minus 15,000 is your periodic payment. Now compute the future value. So $241,971.74. Okay. So now let's see the third type, which is to find the present value of an annuity. This is used to calculate the amount needed to finance one's retirement or a child's university education over a given number of years. Now let's see another example. Here, Petra anticipates needing $25,000 per year during 30 years of retirement. She expects her investments to earn 5% per year during retirement, and she will withdraw the money at the end of each year. And she is willing to draw down the portfolio to zero at the end of the 30 years. Find out how much she will need upon retirement. So to find out, enter the following details in the calculator. The entire sum can be done in the usual default end mode, because this is a case of an ordinary annuity. So 30 is your N, 5 is your I/Y, 25,000 is your periodic payment. This is a cash inflow. Therefore, it's a positive number. So now compute the present value. So we got it. So it's $384,311.28. Now, let's see a slightly difficult challenge. They wants to know how much he must invest today to pay for 4 years of university education for his child, beginning in 5 years. Tuition fees are due at the start of each school year, and they has estimated the cost of the university fee at $10,000 annually, and he expects to earn 7% on the invested money. Now, this problem involves 2 steps. First, let's actually try to understand this challenge. Now, assume this is 2025 and Dev's child would begin university education in 2030. That's 5 years from now. And the education would end by 2033. He needs to pay $10,000 at the start of each year. That's at the start of 2030, 2031, 2032 and 2033. So first we should calculate how much money should be there in his portfolio in Jan 2030 so that $10,000 can be withdrawn. Now this is step 1. So in step 1 we find the present value of the annuity due. Now why is this a case of annuity due? Because the tuition fee needs to be paid at the beginning of each year. Once we see the key term beginning of each year or beginning immediately, then set your calculator to the BGN mode and start the calculation. Okay, so let's take the calculator. Let's put it this way. Clear your memory and activate the BGN mode. It is second F and BGN. So don't worry about what I'm doing here because this is an online calculator. In real-time calculator, it's quite easy. It's just press second F and then the BGN key. Now, we can see that the BGN mode is activated here. So start your calculations. 4 is your N, 7 is your I/Y, minus 10,000 is your periodic payment. Compute the present value. So therefore, the present value is $36,243.16. So this is the amount Dave needs to have in his portfolio on Jan 2030. And investment, because this investment is expected to grow at a rate of 7% each year. Now, let's jump to step 2. Let's determine how much Dave needs to invest today. That's in 2025, so that it will grow to $36,243.16 in 2030. This is a straightforward present value calculation. You just have to set your calculator back to the end mode. Because this is a case of an ordinary annuity. Clear your memory, set your calculator back to the end mode. Okay, so now do the calculations. Refresh it again. Okay, 5 is your N, rate of return is 7, your future value is 36,243.16. Now compute the present value. Yes. So $25,840.87. So, therefore, if Dave invests a lump sum of $25,840.87 today at 7%, he will have $36,243.16 in 5 years. And this amount will allow the child to withdraw $10,000 per year for 4 years. Starting at the beginning of each school year. After the last $10,000 withdrawal to cover the final year's tuition, the balance of the investment portfolio will be 0.